Gordon Brown, the former UK Prime Minister, has written a book offering his take on the financial crisis. In Beyond the Crash, Overcoming the First Crisis of Globalization, Brown says banks were chronically reckless, and he offers his perspective on how to avoid another crisis. Amartya Sen is a professor of economics at Harvard and was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in Economics in 1998. He joins us now from our Boston newsroom. Professor Sen, welcome to Bloomberg News. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you very much for asking me.
Professor Sen, why is former Prime Minister Brown's book so timely?
Oh, because we are still in the middle of the crisis about which he writes. I think the book has fantastic interest because it gives us an inside view of the crisis and how it looked to one of the major players in that drama.
Yeah.
It gives you some idea of how to deal with the future. In both these respects, it's a terrifically timely book.
Professor Sen, did Prime Minister Brown realize early on that something was going wrong with the banks?
Yes, he was, I think, one of the first to recognize that. You know, he had recognized that there was a problem about the way people evaluated debts. He had faced that already in 2005, dealing with debt of Africa. He was very much the moving force behind the Gleneagles agreement of G7 to cancel the bad debts. So in some ways, what has become clear that the banks, even without getting into Africa, had huge amounts of bad debts, and they underestimated it. And they didn't recognize how much their system was undermined. So when in the October of 2009, October 2008, when the crisis was beginning to blow, when Gordon Brown was one of the first to see what was going on, and he tried to recapitalize, and that was a very, very a prescient move.
Professor Sen, was part of the problem here that at the time when you were having some of these countries going through these financial problems and some of the banks were being blamed for these problems, that there wasn't enough global cooperation to try to fix the problem?
I think that is true also. That is, when you say blame the banks could be blamed without that being an unfair blame. And I think it was partly because they had gone in for easy money, high remuneration. The financial system structure itself had.
Right.
So there's a lot to answer for. But yes, global cooperation would have made their problem easier.
Well,
but one defect doesn't wash away the other.
Well, it would seem, though, that perhaps maybe some of these lessons weren't learned. If you're constantly watching the headlines coming out of Ireland and Greece, what seems to be the problem there?
Well, that, I think, is a different kind of problem. You know, I was one of those who was very skeptical of the euro, removing monetary control over each economy without putting any kind of restraint on fiscal side, and without having any kind of a global or European mechanism to help each other. I expected doom, and the doom did come. And I think Gordon Brown is less pejorative than I am on this, but I think he had foreseen, certainly Britain didn't go into euro. He had a great deal of skepticism of it, of a system with monetary control but no fiscal counterpart to it.
Professor Sen, in our last 30 seconds, what are the expectations for a real global recovery right now?
Well, it depends on policy. This is exactly the issue. Namely that if we actually play the game well, and I think Gordon Brown's book is a huge beginning of that discussion as to how to get global cooperation, Europe with its unemployment problem, America with its inequality and unemployment, Asia with its high growth but continuing poverty, each part, and Africa with its long-term underdevelopment problem, all of them need global development on a cooperative basis.
Yeah.
If that can be done, I think the crisis could be finished fairly soon. I mean, in a year or two's time, it won't go away tomorrow. But if the lessons are not learned, and if the processes are as chaotic as they seem to be right now, I'm afraid this may linger for a long, long time.
All right, Harvard economics professor and Nobel laureate Amartya Sen joining us from Boston. Professor Sen, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.